y'all, and welcome back. If you're new here, hi, my name is Fee Green, or you may better know me as the Green Nymph. And by day, I am a professional full-time graphic designer who works on board games, and by night, I'm an illustrator and merch maker. And on this channel, I like to talk about really whatever I want, whenever I want. So, today's video, I have a story time for y'all. I'm gonna try to, I have a script here in front of me, but I'm gonna try to just kind of hit the major bullet points for everything. I've kind of noticed in some of my past videos, I've sounded a little bit like I've been reading off of a script, and I kind of want to try to move away from that. So yeah, we're gonna see how this goes, and cut me some slack. First time I'm trying this. So anyway, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, get comfy, get a blanket, you know, get cozy, because I'm about to talk about the day I left my childhood home, for good, at least for good at the time of this recording, and I moved to a different state, a completely different state, and I knew almost no one there, basically, and yeah, I faced some challenges. I faced some big challenges, some challenging roommates, challenging situations, but I've been able to live away from home for about, on my own for about, relatively on my own, I'll get into it, for about 10 years. So yeah. Okay, so let me take you back. Let me set the scene. It was 2014, and I was, I think, maybe 24 years old, and I just got let go for the first time from my first studio design job in Washington, D.C. And during this time, I was living at home, but it was such a rough time. I took 3 modes of transportation. I had to get up so early. I got up at I think 5 a.m. every day just to get to this job. I did so much to try to make this work. I was young and full of energy, so the lengths I was willing to go through to keep this job was very high. It was my first one, fresh out of college. I had been interning with them for several months prior, and while I was in school, I worked there while I was in school a little bit, before I was hired. And it was a small branding studio in DC with a legit total of 3 people, including myself. So it was me and just 2 other people. And we did work for Fortune 500 companies. And if you don't know what a Fortune 500 company is, they're big, major corporate kind of companies, lots of money, very corporate. They try to be fun sometimes. It's just, anyway, not my thing. But I was doing this for about a year before I was unceremoniously let go. The way my boss let me go was it was at a Christmas party. It was kind of bad. So I showed up, and I didn't know I was getting let go at that time, but after all the pieces came together, I was like, oh, that's what this is. Okay, cool. So I was at her Christmas party, and she gave me a really generous Christmas gift, check, and that was essentially my quote unquote severance, if you will. But it was basically here's a nice little bonus. I know I'm going to be letting you go, but I don't know how I feel about that, but anyway, I have feelings behind that. Okay, and I just also want to touch on those 3 modes of transportation that I was taking. So this was not an easy job to get to, and I busted my butt to get there all the time and worked super hard. So anyway, what I did was I got up, like I said, at 5 a.m. and then my mom would take me to the Amtrak at BWI, and then I would take the Amtrak into Union Station, where I would catch the Metro, and I had to switch between 2 lines on the Metro, and then from the Metro, I'd get off at U Street or something like that, and then I would walk, was so long ago, and then I would walk several blocks to get to this place. And it was not easy. I walked everywhere. I walked so much, because I wanted this job, and I was busting my butt for this job every every time. And then I'd have to take all of that coming home. So it was like, I want to say it was like an hour and a half of me just traveling to get to this place. And then I'd have to do all of that coming home. So I was completely exhausted by the end of my workday. I was miserable, quite honestly. I would like go home and cry every day and self-medicate. And it was a bad time, but I needed the experience. The pay was meh at best. I needed it. I was young. I needed it. I needed to pay my student loans. I had to do what I had to do. So yeah, it was a rough time. It was very, very rough. And so this woman who was my boss, she was extremely traumatizing. I still have PTSD. I kid you not about some things when I think about this or what I experience in the general workforce, and I get very worried about certain stuff. And because she would yell when she would yell the F word at me a lot in front of other people that shared the office space. And it wasn't just the three of us, like I had talked about in this space. It was a graphic design studio that was shared with an architect studio. So like on one side there was like some desks, whatever, and that was like what we did. And then literally on the other side, no walls, no nothing, open space, open floor plan, was the architect. And my boss was good friends with the architect, so like they knew each other, but she would just yell the F word at me if I like wasn't working fast enough, or the dumbest things she would yell at me for in front of other people. It was humiliating. It was embarrassing. And so much so that like I just got really depressed. I never cried in front of her. I just like kept it in, and I would walk home, with one of the architects on the other side, because me and her were friends. And she had at one point worked for for my boss, doing some stuff a little bit, not like anything that I was doing. And she would come back, she would walk with me and she'd be like, you shouldn't go through that. You shouldn't have to go through. I'm like, I know I shouldn't, like, but I have to take this abuse. Technically it's like, well, you don't have to, but it's like, what was I going to do, man? I needed the money. I needed the experience. I was looking for other jobs. I just wasn't getting it. So I just kind of had to take it, because I needed the money. I was young. And so she made it an increasingly hostile work environment. And my boss made it an increasingly hostile work environment. And I was, like I said, I went home every day and I cried. I cried so much. I was so depressed. And like after a year, because I had been working there for about a year, fully employed, out of school, my boss wasn't able to financially afford me or any of us that actually worked there, truthfully. And since I was the last/youngest of the hires, it was the easiest to let me go. Just hands down. I get that. That's very common in the workforce. Is it right? No, but it happens. But like looking back at this was not a place like I said, I was remotely happy in. I was not happy. It was all corporate highbrow work that just wasn't me as a designer. If you know any of the work or even the illustrations and the stuff that I do, or even what I talk about, I'm into toys. I'm a toy designer at most, background and such. That's where I like work best in. I like having fun. I like being playful. And this was all very rigid and like, it was not my style. It was not my style. And I also felt like my boss was trying to make me into like a quote unquote New York City designer. And it came off kind of pretentious to me. Like that's the kind of designer she was. And so that's just not me. And I'm really glad I never let her shape me that way. I resisted. She tried to like get me into all these sorts of things. And she's like, you should look at this. And I'm just like, okay. But I looked at it and I was like, this, like I can appreciate certain types of design, but I also have my own style and my own voice and my own, I like to have fun. And a lot of this stuff was just very like minimalism. And we can do that. We know where minimalism exists and where it is applicable, but like that is not me. I like to have fun. So at the time I was really upset that I was let go because I lost a job. It doesn't feel good when you lose a job. But looking back, like being let go allowed me to start looking for other jobs much more seriously than I was before. I was like kind of looking, but not really looking. And like, you know what I mean? And it was hard. Yeah, I would enjoy something different and that would make me happier. And so while I was looking for a new graphic design job, because I was out of work, I got hired part-time as an office manager at my mom's place of work for a little bit. I answered phones. I worked with the marketing team. Everybody was so nice. It was such a change of pace. Everybody was so kind, so nice. They helped me with like get onboarding, whatever. It's a small team too. This is not a big company, but they do a lot of big work. So like they took the time for me, like on me, to help. And like I said, I helped with the marketing on some of their sales and obviously like filing paperwork, typical office manager stuff. It was good. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but I needed to do it. I had to earn some money. I didn't care what I needed to do. I needed to make money, and I needed to make money to pay back my student loans. There wasn't an option for me to just like not have a job between jobs. I would have gotten a job at like Chipotle for all I cared. But my mom had an opening and they needed a office manager because that office manager was leaving, and my mom and I would just catch rides together. She was like a sales associate, and I worked up at the front, like I said, typical office manager stuff. So it worked out for the time. So one of these days when I was applying to jobs, because I applied to a lot, just kept applying, I stumbled across a listing for ThinkGeek. And I've talked about ThinkGeek before in the past. It's in one of my other videos. I'll link it down below, I think. It didn't hurt to apply. I just came across it, so I did. But it was in Virginia, and I was living in Maryland at the time. So when I brought it up to my mom, because I needed help with like logistics, all that good stuff, we were trying to figure that out. I hardly had any money, due to almost all of it going toward my student loans. Everything I ever made, I hardly had anything to spend for myself. Which was kind of fine, but I was just more concerned about paying off my student loans. And I had been doing that for a really long time. But because I lived at home, I was able to squirrel away a little bit. It wasn't a lot, but it was something, and I was very consistent about it. I made like spreadsheets and stuff, and I like, not like extensive spreadsheets, but like I had a little bit of like a budget is what I should say. I had a budget of like what I could and could not spend and what I made and what I put towards student loans. I didn't have enough to live or afford a studio apartment. There was just no way. I didn't make enough. I didn't save enough. I wouldn't be able to upkeep it. That wasn't going to happen. And even with roommates, there was still no way I could afford to live on my own like that. My only option was to live with some cousins of mine that lived in Virginia. And thankfully they lived really close to the place of work that I was going. So like before I got too deep into it, before I applied to something, I had to be like, well, can I actually make it there? If I were to get the job, can I actually realistically do this? Best case scenario, etc. My cousin's only requirement, please y'all, my cousin's only requirement was that I go to church every Sunday, and then I could live there rent free. And okay, I am not religious. I am not a very religious person. I am spiritual. Okay. I never did go to church like they requested. I feel somewhat bad about that, but also not really, because I shouldn't be forced to do that. They were older cousins, much older cousins. And so they were not able to actually go to church themselves. I'm not sure if they did their own religious practices or whatever, but that was their request. And you know what? I took that offer. What I did, I don't know. I thought it was a fine deal. I didn't actually go. I didn't actually go to church. There was a church nearby, whatever. Instead, I took extremely long walks. That was my church. Okay. I love nature. I love walking. I took really long walks on Sundays, and I came back after 2 hours. I was like, maybe this is the time that this should be done. So then I'd come back. I have a lot of religious trauma, actually, from my childhood, and I don't like being forced to participate in religion. I mean, everybody's like, yeah, understandable. Yeah, you would think, right? But, when you're young, sometimes you don't have a choice, and this is all you know, and It gets really messy and complicated. I'm not going to get into it, but there's some religious childhood trauma in there. Childhood trauma. Only if it's my choice for participating in religious activities, practices, etc. Only if it's my choice, which in this case it wasn't, but it's okay. The walks helped. It was a great exercise, reflected a lot, got my mind in order. It was good for me. The walks. My cousins, let me just preface, my cousins aren't bad. They just have really, really old views for their generation. You know what I mean? Like they just had very specific views on things. I didn't have to sit there and try to fight them on it. I just kind of did my own thing, and yeah, that's what that was. But I did end up getting the job, so I agreed to their rules, whatever. I agreed, and I moved in, and I moved into like a room in their house. And I brought only a few things with me. I think it was like my computer, my Nintendo Wii at the time, with like a few games. I think I was playing Skyward Sword, so like that kept me busy a lot of nights. That was really good. I bought like my Kindle and stuff with games and books and stuff. And a small set of clothes that I would, rewear more often than I would like to mention, because I felt really weird always needing their laundry area. So I tried to push that limit. I wanted to make myself as minimal as possible in their space, in their area, because I felt weird. I wasn't paying rent, I wasn't really contributing to a whole lot of stuff like that, except for like this whole quote unquote church thing that they said was the only rule. So I didn't want to like take up too much of their space, and I wanted to make myself as tiny as I could. They were really nice though to like make dinner every night and let me eat with them. There was only a small amount of space in their freezer for me though. So like I said, I wanted to keep myself as tiny and minimal as possible. So I would put like frozen pot pies and a bunch of TV dinners that I brought, cheap TV dinners, and I brought that to work for lunch. I was actually always really hungry though. There wasn't any extra food after dinner, and I felt bad about taking it because I think they had like a son living at home there at the time, and I was like, I'm just a guest here. Like, I feel like I'm an intruder, again, not contributing, not paying rent, etc. So I didn't feel like I was entitled to any of that. Yeah, I don't know. But so I needed to save my freezer foods so I could have lunch at work. So I kind of just managed. I did go to bed hungry a lot though. And that kind of sucked after a while. And eventually after I started working at this place, I was able to save some money to hoard a few snacks in my room, and it helped. I needed to keep some of that food in my room because, yeah, I was just hungry all the time. I didn't take too many helpings during dinner. I didn't want to seem like I was overeating. Yeah. Trying to make myself small, y'all. Trying to make myself small. I said I didn't contribute. I did slightly contribute a little bit. Like I helped my cousin, because she was older, bring in stuff, get things from higher up shelves, help her do the dishes after dinner, etc., like every night, stuff like that. But like financially, I was not contributing to the household, and that made me feel really bad. But I tried to do like tiny things every now and again, where I could. But yeah, I did all of this for maybe about like 3 months until I met Think Geek's office manager. I'll call her Bonnie. She was in need of a roommate, and I was so desperate. I was in desperate need of more freedom, my own space, to eat when I felt like I could eat. So I was saving as much as I possibly could. So much. I would just put as much away as I could. Hardly going out or buying anything in order to save money, to like one day move out. And Bonnie let me move into one of her spare bedrooms in a trailer on the other side of town. It was in another town close by. She was renting it from her stepdaughter and their family. And the rent was a little bit higher for me, but I could do it if I was super frugal with my money. Like, it was going to be tight. It was going to be really, really tight. So I decided to take a chance and do it. I needed to take that chance. And this time I had more room than before, which was extra nice. It was so nice to finally have some personal space. You know, I went back to Maryland at the time and I cleaned out my old room of everything I could. My mom, she really wanted that room, my childhood room, to herself, and it really made me feel bad, actually. It made me feel really, really awful that she was kind of pressuring me that I needed to immediately clean out everything. But I took that as like a sign, you know, that was my fresh start. This is me starting over, you know, doing something new. I was kind of excited for it, really. She claims to this day that isn't what she meant, but like, she definitely told me she wanted everything gone from that room. So I did like exactly that for the most part anyway. And that room, I had been in that room for almost 20, 23, 24 years. For like since I was a wee bab, you know, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of toys, a lot of everything. It was filled. It was, I found some crazy stuff in there. Yeah. But anyway, so I donated a lot of that stuff. I saved some of it, some of the stuff that I really wanted, I saved. And I only left a few bins in storage, I think, at her place, at my parents' place, to pick up later, when I had more space, which wouldn't come for like another 6 years. And at the time, Bonnie had also gotten another roommate because we needed one more person to help pay for the rent. We got another roommate named Chris. I don't remember his last name at all. I can't remember it all. So Chris is pretty generic, but it's fine. That lived in the bedroom next to mine. I wasn't able to afford a moving truck, so like when I went to go get all of my stuff from my parents' folks, he was nice enough at least to come along and we could use his truck to haul my bed and dresser back to Virginia. Everything else I packed up in my little Nissan Sentra, and I mean packed, capital Packed to the brim. It was bursting with almost everything I owned. Okay, I need to admit, Chris, this new roommate, was interesting though, and he also gave me really weird vibes. Chris was like 45 years old. He was renting a bedroom. Like I said, that was next to mine. And it wasn't because he didn't have enough money that he was renting. People can spend their money however they want. There was a lot of things that he did, I'll get into it, that just really, just really rubbed me wrong. He openly talked about how much money he was making a lot of the time. And it was a lot. He made a lot of money. He just wasn't financially savvy with any of it. And maybe he didn't care. I don't know. That's for him. For example, he never once in the 8 months we lived there, he cooked. He never cooked for himself once. I never saw him. I was always out there making my own meals because that's how you save money. He never once cooked for himself. And he would always go, and some people don't know how to cook. Okay, fine. But like, you should learn how to cook. You're going to save a lot of money, okay? You're going to save so much money. If you don't want to, that's fine. That's fine. You do how you want to do. But I'm going to tell you, if you want to save money and you're having a hard time, cook for yourself. Just find easy things. But he would always go out. This is what's crazy. He would always go out to these like steak restaurants, like these expensive steak restaurants, and buy 2 or 3 meals. He would have a meal there, buy 2 or 3 meals to bring back, along with like 4 or 5 cases of like pack of 24 beers. And I just have to preface, going out to eat is a luxury. You don't need to go out to eat. Making meals at home is the best way, like I said, to save money. And he was going out to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. That's so much money. It's crazy to me. It's an absolute insanity. He was also really gullible. I actually felt bad for him, but he was really gullible, and he fell for that classic old scam. I'm sure a lot of you know of it, that classic scam online of a desperate woman in need of money, and he would send her $3K. He'd send her $3K. He told me. He thought they were dating. He sent this woman $3K because he thought they were dating, and then he got surprised after he sent the money why she never responded back, why she ghosted him. And they never met. They never met in person, only online. I don't know where he met her online, but he met her somewhere. So he never really knew who he was talking to. It could have been anybody, literally anybody. You don't do that. Okay, guys, you don't do that. A lot of you are like, duh, no, yeah. But like, so I felt kind of bad. I don't know, but you just don't do that. And Chris, this man drank so much, it made me always uncomfortable. Not the fact that he drank, okay? Just the fact that he would drink in such excess. I have PTSD from other things from that too, from people drinking in major excess around me. I don't like it. I do not like. I mean like really excess, okay? I don't care if people drink around me. It's just, I have a limit, okay? So much so that he would stumble to my door in the middle of the night and want to have full-blown conversations at like 3 a.m. on a work night. And it became so often that he started jiggling the handle to my doorknob all the time to have these conversations. And it freaked me out, especially the first time. It freaked me out. So I started locking my door so he couldn't even have the opportunity to open it. I don't know. Bonnie was asleep. You know, this man, I barely know this man. He could have done anything. So I started locking my door and sleeping with a knife under my pillow. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. And what's hilarious, yet also very much not so hilarious, is that this won't be the first time in my living with other people that I've lived in a place where a man has tried to open my bedroom door in the middle of the night, and I've slept with a knife under my pillow. It's not the first time. Not at all. So much so that a coworker friend at work, actually made me a necklace that literally says, "I sleep with a knife by my bed." But all of that is a whole nother story, for another day. Yeah. Like, and the reason my coworker friend knows about this was because I actually was very scared for myself. So I was like, I need to tell somebody that this is going on. Because if I wind up dead one day, someone needs to know why this is happening. Like, I can't just all of a sudden just wake up dead. I mean, I ain't gonna be waking up, but I need someone to know what's going on, because this is unsafe. This is extremely unsafe for me. And around like 8 months of living there, I knew I needed to leave this place. So like, I was already starting to save, because all the time, I just try to save and save and save and save as much as I possibly can. It's a couple of dollars here, even a couple of dollars, it adds up, even if it's not a lot. And I cooked all my own meals at home. I rationed out my food to make it last until the next paycheck. The only place I could afford to shop for groceries was Aldi's. I don't know if anybody else knows what Aldi's is, or if you have one near you. And there is nothing wrong with Aldi's, okay? They have really nice, cheap, and affordable food, but I wouldn't call it all great, okay? Their meats were never really fresh. Their meats were not always great, and the produce was possibly questionable at best, but it was better than the meats. Produce was better than the meats, but it's what I could afford. Okay. The dry goods were perfect though. Dry goods were awesome. So I stocked up on a lot of rice and potatoes, cheap stuff, jazzed them up a little bit with, some spices, some flavors, some cheese, all that good stuff. I also bought a lot of frozen tilapia since it was cheaper than the meats. And I got a lot of them in a bag, and I could portion them out throughout the week. And then to top it off, I got some bagged salad that I would add in for some veggies, maybe cut up a tomato or red onion and sprinkle the entire thing with some of that shredded cheese. And I would ration some of these meals out. But I had this meal that I'm describing to you, I had this meal for almost 4 months back to back, with my grocery spending limit around like $50 every 2 weeks. It was nothing. I had to stretch that money. And there were, like I said, I had to ration. Some days I was a little bit more hungry than normal, but I couldn't eat I had to ration it. I couldn't just eat all the time whatever I wanted. I had to save money. It's just what I had to do. Doing these things, rationing my food, squirreling away this money again, it allowed me to save enough to get out of the trailer, but just in time too. Like right when I got just enough money, winter came, and it was one of the coldest we have had in years. I remember it was so cold. My room had no insulation either. My window was, it always like leaked cold air in. I was so cold in the winter. and it got so cold that the pipes ended up bursting. And I don't know if any of y'all have had that happen. It is a bad time. It is damage. It is expensive. The landlord of the trailer never insulated their plumbing, their pipes. So when the temperatures dropped, the lines froze, and this caused the water in the trailer to stop working. All of a sudden, I just turned it on. Like literally it worked the night before, turned it on over the next morning, was not happening, nothing coming out. Everywhere in the trailer, no water. And instead, it started to get backed up. And so like through the sinks and the tub drains. And I honestly don't think it was normal water coming back up because it was brown. I want to say it was sewage. I don't know. I actually don't know, but it stank to high heaven. It was, oh God, that was so awful. I just keep feeling like I'm saying I'm miserable. It's awful. It was bad. It was bad. And what's also crazy to me is that the landlord told us we should have kept the faucets running at a low drip to keep this from happening. I've never heard of anyone not insulating their pipes. That's news to me. Okay, be responsible, landlord. You really think that just keeping the water, I mean, like that is something to do to keep your pipes from freezing, but I shouldn't have to waste and pay for all that water running, you know? Like just because you don't want to insulate your pipes. No. And to think that this was our responsibility to keep all the faucets running. It's just, like I said, it's crazy to me. It's just, that's the freaking wildest thing. I'm not going to run up our water bill. No, sorry, not gonna happen. That should have been something the landlord took care of. And you know, the landlord thankfully did take care of the pipes, but at the cost of fixing them, there was so much that it costed them so much that they ended up not wanting to keep the trailer anymore and just wanted to sell it, which meant that me, Bonnie, and Chris all needed to leave anyway. And Bonnie had been there for 10 plus years, you know, and it's just freaking crazy to me, like this one winter, because it got so bad that this was the winter that I decided, you know, that the time at which that I decided to stay there, that the pipes burst. Just my luck. I won the lottery, y'all. I had and when we found out that they weren't going to keep the trailer, I had 1 month to find a new place. Which is maybe, you know, that's not a lot of time. And but I was able to move in with my cousin. Oh God. Some of you have heard me talk on stream about my cousin, but moving in with her was one of the worst roommates of my entire life. Mark it down, fees lifetime, cousin worst roommate of the year, of the century, okay, of a millennia, of all things in the timeline, is the worst. It was bad. It was so bad. And if you want to hear about that, let me know in the comments. It is. That's going to be a long one, but it is a time. I can't make some of that stuff up. It was bad. It's way too much for me to put in here. That's why, you know, I can't. It's a roller coaster of a story. I'm gonna tell you. I've given you snippets on my stream, but I can get into detail, you know, not too personal of a detail, but I could tell you about it if you really want to know. The entire experience with her left me scarred enough to cut her out of my life entirely, along with some other of my family members. And I don't regret it at all. I don't regret a single thing. Best decision of my life. Keeping her out of my life has been I was so smart to do this. I will never accept her back. It's not worth it. It's damaging. You know, it was safer and healthier for me to remove her. Anyway, okay. Y'all, let me know if you'd like to hear more story times. This is my first one. I got a couple that might amuse you. If you're looking for something a little bit more lighthearted, I could do that too. But yeah, I thought this one was kind of entertaining, and probably applicable. Some people out there, you know, we be struggling to live out on our own, and it's not all peaches and cream. It's not all hunky-dory. Sometimes you gotta, you know, get a bit gritty with it. And, you know, it's hard. It is hard. And anyway, as always, if you want to support what I do or want to see more art content, I have all my links in the description box below. So yeah, until next time, y'all.